Hey everyone, Jamie here from Riot. Welcome back to Thank Punk. It's Friday. This week, Citizen released a new single, Jet. Unfortunately, not the classic Wings song of the same name. It is a brand new song off their brand new third album, As You Please, which will be out on October the 6th on Run for Cover Records. Their second album, Everybody Is Going to Heaven, came out in 2015. Had a bit of a mixed reception, let's say. Some people really liked it. Some people thought that it didn't follow up on the promise shown on their first album, Youth, which is fantastic. Personally, I really like it. I think it's a great album. I think tracks like Numb Yourself, Yellow Love, and Cement show real maturity and development of sound without losing the things that made them great on Youth. They're still a young band as well. People forget they did Youth when they were in their teens, so they're still growing and developing as a band. And yeah, Youth does have tracks like Sleep, The Night I Drove Alone, How Does It Feel, Roam the Room, all bangers, I'm not denying that. But after figuring it out, it does tail off a little bit. I think people really look at that album with rose-tinted glasses a little bit. Great album, don't get me wrong, but Everybody Is Going to Heaven is still a great album. This track, Jet, seems to follow somewhere between those two albums. It's still got a lot of the groove and the vibe, the dark vibes that Everybody Is Going to Heaven have, but it's also brought in a lot of the hooks and the memorable lines that made Youth so popular. Either way, people seem to be digging it. I love this album art as well. It's kind of like a retro, like circus worker with the kind of painted styles on there. Citizen posted a picture on their Facebook of the guitarist Nick Ham, who does their album covers, kind of hand painting this flag, which looks really cool. Anyway, that's out October the 6th on Run for Cover. The band did announce at Slam Dunk Festival that they're coming back to the UK in the autumn. So they've not announced the tour, but they've said that they're coming back. So let's just look out for that one, eh? Unfortunately, they're not going to be touring with Turnover again. Those bands pretty much have exclusively played shows together here for the last 2 years. But Turnover are already doing a headline tour in September, so it's unlikely that we will see them tour together. Manchester Orchestra released another track called The Moth. It's the third single off their upcoming album, A Black Mile to the Surface, which is out in 2 weeks' time, July the 28th. Now, I spoke about Manchester Orchestra and their history at great length in the last show 2 weeks ago, so I won't go into it too much detail, but needless to say, this track follows on from the previous singles, The Alien and The Gold. Very vibey, kind of more low-key than their last album, Cope. Definitely not as heavy. I saw in a great interview on Up Rocks with Manchester Orchestra that their goal for this album was to be as intense without being as loud, and they definitely kind of achieved that with these 3 tracks. There's a lot of delay and reverb on the guitars, a lot of soft but layered vocals to kind of build that atmosphere. They're really cool tracks. It's definitely a different vibe of Manchester Orchestra, as I said in the last video. I'm really interested to hear this album. I wouldn't say that Manchester Orchestra have necessarily done a bad album. There's definitely some that are better than others. They definitely haven't written a bad track, if you know what I mean. And I think that they are a band that have adapted and changed throughout their career and still been great at whatever they've done. So I am really interested to hear this album. 2 weeks time, July the 28th. Also doing a headline tour in the UK later this year. They've just announced in the US that the supports for their tour for A Black Mile to the Surface are Foxing and Tiger's Jaw. If you could just bring them to the UK, guys, then please do. It's unlikely because Tiger's Jaw are definitely doing a headline run in August, but that'd be sick. That'd be so good. Straight from the Past dropped a new track, Goodnight Alt-Right. It's from their upcoming 6th album, Only Death Is Real, out September the 8th. The new metal rap rock band say a lot of great stuff in this track, mostly about anti-fascism and how free speech comes at a price. I gotta say though, this track is not necessarily for me. I do respect the message and agree with most of it, but musically it's not really my thing. Definitely feel like they've pinched an aesthetic idea or two from that new Code Orange album as well. I'm just saying that compare the last shot in this video to the last shot in the video for Forever by Code Orange. There's some similarities. Seaway released a new track, Apartment. It's off their upcoming 3rd album, Vacation, out September the 15th on Pure Noise Records. Really surprised these guys are on their 3rd album, to be honest. They keep churning them out. If you haven't already caught them on tour with bands like As It Is, The Wonder Years, or Knuckle Puck, then this is fast-paced, emo-inflected pop punk for fans of bands like those, and also Real Friends and Boston Manor. It's that end of the scale of pop punk where it's not too meek, it's not too wimpy, for a lack of a better word, but it's also still got a really good sense of melody and really accessible. Also, the video for this track features a lot of dogs, which is something that I can only recommend. Nine Inch Nails dropped a new track, Less Than. It's off their upcoming EP, Add Violence, which will be out on July the 21st. Apparently, this is the second in a trilogy of EPs, following on from their last one, Not the Actual Events, which was released late last year. I'll admit, I'm not the biggest Nine Inch Nails fan. I think I said that back when that EP came out, but this track definitely showcases their new wave 80s influence, and I really like it. I think it's really cool. It's kind of poppy. It's got that like Depeche Mode, Gary Newman style vibes, which is really cool. I don't know Nine Inch Nails stuff too well, to be honest, beyond the singles, so if they do have other tracks like this, then please let me know about them in the comments, because I might actually be able to get into them. Metz released a new song, Cellophane. It's the first single off their upcoming third album, Strange Peace, out September the 22nd on Sub Pop Records. If you haven't heard of Metz before, they're one of the biggest bands in that fuzzy indie punk scene centered around Ontario, Canada. Also features bands like Pup and Single Mothers. Metz recorded this album live with Steve Albini, which should give you an indication of what it's going to sound like. Frantic, frenetic, fuzzy, and loud. If you like that Meatwave album that came out this year, also produced by Steve Albini, really great album, The Incessant, then you'll probably like this track and also Metz in general. And if you like those bands, then you'll probably also like Pinact, who just dropped a new track, Seams. It's another single off their upcoming second album, The Part That No One Knows, out August 25th on K9 Records. The Scottish band are also playing some shows in the US soon and doing a UK tour later this year. Some new albums out today. Bad Sign released their album Live and Learn. It's the debut album from the three-piece hard rock outfit. They're for fans of bands like Black Peaks or Tesseract, who they played shows with. Also kind of bands like Biffy Clyro, and also heavier stuff like Pulled Apart by Horses or Tiger Cub. And Silverstein released the album Dead Reflection today. Basically the last man standing of the Scene Kids. This is their 9th album, which is something to be respected. It's out on Rise Records today. They're still going. They're still on Warped Tour this year. Their 7th year on Warped Tour, apparently. If you've not heard of them before and somehow avoided the scene wars of the late 2000s, then they're for fans of bands like Chiodos or Under Oath. Also, you could throw in From First to Last or Hawthorne Heights in there, but personally, I would recommend Silverstein over those bands. They're a bit trash. And Manchester Punk's Aerial Salad released a new video for their song Check My Mind. It's all centered around the recent UK tour that they just finished. They've also recently played shows with bands like Beach Slang, Wonk Unit and Roughneck Riot. They definitely have punk vibes like all of those bands, but you can also hear a lot of the Manchester influences in there. I would say you can hear the swagger of bands like Oasis and the atmosphere of bands like Joy Division, as much as you can hear the difference in dynamics influenced by bands like Nirvana and Pixies. They're a really cool band. If this sounds like your kind of thing, then definitely check them out. Their debut album Roach is set to be released this year. And I had a fantastic time at 2000 Trees Festival last week. It was amazing last year and it definitely lived up to my expectations this year as well. It was a great weekend. We interviewed a lot of bands there. I also filmed a lot of bands there. And I got a really good drunken Instagram story. That's on the YouTube and Facebook page, so you can check that out. If you want to follow us on Instagram and Twitter, then the @ is Start Riot Music. We'll be hitting up more music festivals soon, so stay tuned for stuff like that. But for now, have a great weekend. Stay safe whatever you're up to, and thank punk, it's Friday!